Do this one. Yes, please know that this meeting is being recorded, and we are going to be talking about planning with digital in mind. My name is Kim Loomis. I am the former director for online and blended learning in Clark County School District. I retired last summer in 2019, so I spent about the last 10 years really digging deep into the virtual environment, all the way from being a face-to-face classroom teacher, taught high school math for 10 years before I did my stint in administration in the real brick and mortar schools as well as in the virtual school. I also facilitate professional development, a high school reform manager, had millions of dollars of grants there in Clark County, and a curriculum coordinator. In 2017, I did author a book called Think Outside the Box, the CIA of Blended Learning and 10 plus models for secondary schools. I'm really glad you guys are joining us today. As we go through today, we're going to do some really fun things on Zoom. So just a brief overview of kind of what Zoom can do. At some point in time, you may want to give us a reaction, and that oftentimes is found down in the bottom of your screen. There's a little reaction. You hover over that. You can give thumbs up, pluses, clapping, celebrations, all kinds of really cool things. If you open up your participant window, you'll see there's a yes, no, go slower, go faster, even little coffee break and claps there as well. And in just a moment, I'm going to actually have you guys do some annotation where you're going to write on the screen. Oftentimes that's found at the very top. You might have to hover over the more to see it, and then you can see some annotation tools like stamps and hearts and stars and even text boxes. So as we go through today, please feel free to use some of the Zoom features. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So I look forward to seeing all of your guys' great notes as we go through. So earlier you heard me say that this presentation is a video series. So earlier in the COVID times, I actually did a video series for the Department of Education on this topic. So I want to give you guys these links here. So I've tried to make them really easy. They're little bit.lys. I'm going to drop them all into the chat so that you can copy paste them somewhere for yourself as well. So one of the things I find when you're dealing in this virtual world is being consistent and having patterns. It helps your parents, it helps your students as well. So you'll notice that the consistency that I have on these patterns here. So I did a 5-part series for blended learning. It is in the Department of Education's YouTube site. You can look it up. They call it the Blended Learning Videos 1 through 5. And they are the CIA model, which we're going to talk about today, which is the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment model, as well as moving into the C part, the content part, the I, the instruction part. The A is authentic assessment. We'll talk more about that today, but I like to use the word engage videos. It's kind of jumping off of what Dee was talking about today, really getting students involved in the learning. And then that last one is the lesson video and how to lesson plan. So again, these videos are available on the Department of Education. Hey, so go ahead, first opportunity to use your, polling features at the bottom, or at the top there. How many of you knew that there was these videos available? You can either give me a yes and no up under by your participant's name, or you can just give me a thumbs up. Ah, look at that. Yeah, not too many people knew about it. See, aren't you glad you came today, right? So yeah, I'm really glad that y'all came today. So these videos are available. You can take them back. You can, do one a week, maybe, think through, don't do them all in one night. They're all about, the first one's probably shorter. It's probably closer to 40 minutes, but the others are about 50 minutes. But yeah, think about how you might be able to bring that to not only to the people that are here today, but maybe even back to your staff or your grade level or your department level. So anyway, today, here's our agenda. We opened up with our welcome. We're going to start talking about restarting in COVID times, engaging students, and then really spend a lot of time partnering with digital content and a little bit on the CIA of blended. So if I talk fast, don't worry, because you already know where you can get those 5 videos. They're there in the chat. So a lot of what you're going to see today, it can be found in all of those videos. So don't worry about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So preparing for the movement. Guys, go to your annotation. It's usually at the top of your screen. I want to know how many of you are in a blended environment. Kids are coming to school every day and you're blending the classroom. How many of you are in that hybrid environment where you're splitting the schedule? Like some days they come to school and some days they're working from home. And how many of you are actually in what we call the online or the remote learning? My daughter, who's a senior at one of the schools here in Clark County, she is in that fully online. So again, I'm going to go up to the top of my screen. Sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom. Underneath more, you'll see something that says annotation. And when you hit the annotation, you get all these really cool things. You can do a star, a stamp. If you hover over the stamp, like I said earlier, I know that my daughter, and there's my little red heart for her because she's doing online. So again, that's up at the top. Usually annotation. Underneath the stamp, they have lots of really cool ones where you can do the stars or the stamps, or you can bring up a pencil. Looks like we got a lot of people in the online. I'll bet that's a lot of Clark people, because I know we have a lot of Clark people enrolled in. About 50% of our attendance today is from Clark. So anybody who's doing, oh, big circle on all of them. Anybody who's doing a hybrid want to open up their mic and kind of tell us what district you're at and how that's working for you?
Out in Nye County, we have all three.
You have a choice, so parents have a choice, right?
Well, they have a choice of fully online. The hybrid and blended is based on enrollment at the schools.
All right, thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
So I'm at Pahrump Valley High School, which is in Nye County, the same county as Carolyn, and we're doing hybrid. So I see some of them Monday, Wednesday. I see others Tuesday, Thursday, and then we also have a third category where they're all online.
Okay, great. Nye County seems to have a good menu of things going on. Anybody else?
I'm from Carson High School, and here we have hybrid, which is a unique one. On Monday, all kids are remote, but we have a homeroom class in the morning that all students have to attend, and we have a special lessons for them. And then the rest of the day is used for assignments or special one-on-one remediation with teachers. Then the rest of the hybrid is, we see it's broken into block. We see the students, basically I see a class once a week. And yeah, I would say it's a tough situation because we only get to see him once a week because it's blocked. So on, explain this a little better. On Tuesdays and Thursdays is cohort 1, which is you, and then Wednesday and Fridays cohort 2. Tuesday, Wednesday's A day. Thursday, Fridays B days. So it comes down to we see our students once a week, and the rest of the time they're in remote.
Well, thank you for sharing. Was that Sherry?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. What we're going to do now, because you guys can see across the state, everybody's doing something a little bit different over in the chat. I saw a lot of people that were talking about, we're fully online. I've got a client that is in Alaska. And what they're doing, it's an interesting take. They're doing, instead of A and B days, they do A and B weeks. It's absolutely crazy. The kids come to school for 1 week. Half the kids come to school for 1 week, and then that next week they're what's called they're working from home, but they only have to work on 3 courses from home. They only have to work on their core courses, not their electives. And so that's just their English and math every week, and every other week it's social studies and science. So you want to talk about crazy, move to Palmer, Alaska. That is like a crazy way that they're doing things. I see down in the thing there we have Elko is fully online. So I got to tell you, I'm a big fan. I was a math teacher for 10 years, and so I love things really, really simple. And I know that Jason gave us a definition of blended personalized learning in his keynote, but I mathematically, I like to just say, look, it's the wisdom of the teachers. You guys are super, super smart. You've been doing this, some of you for multiple years, and you understand the standards really, really well. And so we're going to take that wisdom and we're going to match it with the intelligence of technology. And just like Jason said a moment ago in the opener, is that it cannot replace you guys. right? Technology cannot replace you, because I'm going to talk about DOK, or depth of knowledge levels, here in just a moment. But technology, even though I will say it's intelligent only because it's been programmed, right? So it can grade papers really super fast. Unlike us, who are taking stuff home over the weekend to grade, and by Monday the kids don't care, right? The technology can give them grades immediately, right? So that's why I call it the intelligence, because it's a bunch of ones and O's. But what we want to do is we want to take those two things and we want to match them together so that we can create that personalized learning space for our individual students. So look at these three icons, because they're going to be really important. I'm going to use these icons over and over and over again, because it will remind us about the equation that we need to really do for mathematics. 1/3 of the time the classroom teacher, needs to lead. 1/3 of the time we want to release to the technology and let it deliver content. And 1/3 of the time we want to release to our students, like Jason's picture, letting them look at their papers, looking at the computers and stuff. So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You're going to hear me say that quite a bit today. So Jason hit it this morning. The core business of schools is relationships and learning. And I put it in this order because relationships, just like Jason said, have to come first, right? And then the learning can come. Because I don't know about you, you can give me a thumbs up if you've ever had a kid who failed your class or failed a subject area because they didn't like you, right? I have. And I was the coach. I was the high school varsity soccer coach, coached boys and girls. And there were people who did not like me, and they were just going to fail my class because I didn't have that relationship with them, right? Because just to spite me, they were going to fail my class. So that relationships becomes really important. We really want to focus in on that relationships, not only with ourselves, but with the peers, right? And that's where that 1/3 of the equation, where I talk about engaging students with peer-to-peer interaction, becomes really important. It's not just the relationship teacher to student, but student to student, as well as student to content. So as we move forward, let's think about the typical classroom. In the typical classroom, we have a teacher who's working really super hard, right? And they're trying to get everything done. They're trying to get all that, that low level, let's just get the basics in right now. And then you got the kid in the back of the room that's raising his hand, then the kid that was absent, you got to bring them in, and you're working really, really hard on, you're really getting to that depth of knowledge, DOK level 1 and 2 skills and concepts, and you're trying your darndest and your hardest to get to those higher levels, but dang, you get stuck there because this kid needs help and this kid needs help, and dang if I don't need help, right? So you're tired and frustrated in the typical classroom. Now the students in a typical classroom, well, they're working on skills and doing their basics, practice stuff, and they're getting, what you're giving them. But most students are like, dude, I'm bored. We've done this before. We've done it. We're doing it again. Can we do something fun? Kind of like Dee was talking about in the keynote today. Is there a way that we can bring the arts in? Is there a way that we can engage those students? So look at what them, they're bored and frustrated. You're tired and frustrated. The kids are bored and frustrated, but don't forget, there's another group of students that aren't showing up to our classes. And especially right now, we're having, with the pandemic, we have a lot of kids that just are choosing to miss school, miss instruction. So they're creating gaps and they're frustrated. So if I ask you, what's the common thing going on right now? Go ahead, throw it in chat. What do you see as the common thing going on in these three groups of people? Yeah, frustration, right? It's frustration all around, right? Everybody is frustrated in this type of classroom. So what we want to do is we want to change that. We want to change the way that looks, right? So we want to, and there's an easy way to make that change, and it is just one slight change, right? Because here's the thing, students won't remember what you taught them. They won't remember that Miss Loomis taught algebra or geometry or anything, even coaching soccer. What they will remember is they'll remember how I made them feel. Right? Did I make them feel isolated? Did I make them feel frustrated? Did I make them have fun? Right? So we want to take that frustration and throw it out the door so that we can change the way that people feel. Now we could do that by adding one thing to your classroom. To create an actively engaged classroom, all we need to do is partner with digital content. right? Allow it to carry some of that low level skills and practice and introduce some basic concepts so that the kids can then engage in that skills and practice. And so we can personalize the learning place. So Deborah can be at a different place than Lauren, or a different place than Chantel, right? You could all be at different places. Maybe in the same lesson, Chantel might be working on a Pear Deck and somebody else is working on a Google Doc. Somebody else might be working on a video, but we're all doing the same lesson. It just has different components. And I can do that when I bring technology in. And the cool thing is there's great data that tells me the level of comprehension for each and every individual student, as well as my class as a whole. So what that does for me as a classroom teacher, when I partner with the tech and I release some time to my students, I can create stations, and Jason's talked about it today, playlists that can actually engage activities for students. So I can take them to those deeper levels that I may not have been able to get to before because I was so busy working on those low level skills and practice. Now I can get them into application and the synthesis and analysis by guiding the instruction, by setting up lessons that engage students, that don't take all my time, but takes all their time, right? So we want to set up stations. So when we do that, look what happens to the students. They become owners of their own knowledge. Yeah, they're going to be working in the technology. They're going to be working on some higher order skills. They're going to be working with their peers, collaborating, communicating, being creative, even developing some of those habits of empathy and grit and perseverance, even leadership and how to dialogue with each other, right? So now I can push them to higher levels of DOK, or depths of knowledge, right? I can get them to that creativity, that stuff that we really were talking about actively before. And what happens to our students that were absent? Well, guess what? The tech can pick them up. Their peers can help pull them up. And I, as a classroom teacher, get to push them up so that they get caught up. So I saw somebody over here talk about recommendations for students with different things. So we're going to talk about that, and there's lots of them in the video series. So keep that in mind as we go through here and we talk about it. Notice the difference. There's no frustration going on here. Everything's energized. The technology, right, oftentimes drags and drops. They have gaming. A lot of the software products have coins that kids can get, and they get Bitmojis, and they can put clothes on them. There's lots of different ways that make that very energizing. When they're communicating and collaborating, remember we talked about relationships isn't only just with their peers, with their peers as well as their teachers. So we want to have those situations where we're doing small groups, right? So the CIA of blended.
Yes, ma'am.
Is curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Rodney, I'm sorry. I thought this
Stephen,
was
can you
Asia.
please turn off your mic? Stephen,
I'm
can
on
you
my
please turn
iPad,
off your
so it
mic?
doesn't say Rodney. It just has a bunch of numbers.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me mute him. All right, cool. All right, so CIA, curriculum, again, we talk about it, right? We have to gill through it. So CIA, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Now, that's been the foundation of every classroom for all the years. I've got a 104-year-old aunt, believe me. She's still alive in Tulare, California. She was a classroom teacher in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Well, wait, even into the 70s, because when I was in elementary, she was a classroom teacher, right? CIA garnished her classroom as well. Well, in the blended classroom, we're going to talk about digital curriculum. We're going to release a little bit to the digital curriculum. We're going to guide the instruction. Our lesson planning is going to say, this is where I can release to digital curriculum. This is where I have to carry, and this is when I can release to the kids, right? So I'm guiding that instruction. I'm setting a path for success. And authentic assessment. There's going to be regular assessment in your digital curriculum, and there's probably going to be regular assessment in your classroom, but authentic assessment, when we can get those 4 C's, communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking with peer-to-peer engagement, right? So think of that triple Venn diagram you see over there on the far right. We're shooting for the middle. We want a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 balance. Now, you heard me talk a lot about DOKs. So if you're more of a Bloom's person, I just want to give you some ideas of how that looks. So Webb's depth of knowledge really comes in and says, when we're looking at skills, DOK 1 and 2, which I say that the technology does very well, is skills, concepts, and recall, which is that base or that bottom of Bloom's taxonomy. If I could get a good solid bottom on my kids, and I don't mean sitting on their bottom, but if I can get a good foundation foundation in math, English, and science. Think about where I can take them in strategic thinking and applying and analyzing and extending and creating and evaluating. So if I can partner with that digital content, if I can release to another partner that way, then I can get my kids moving up the pyramid, or in this case, also up into higher depths of knowledge and DOKs. So here's the key, guys. The key is the digital curriculum, right? If you can release that digital curriculum, and you can find digital content on YouTube channels, you probably have software products that'll do it. This is engaging software, usually aligned to standards. It creates a personalized learning space for students. It gives you data points, but guys, please know what it is. It is not going to replace you, because it is only going to be DOK level 1 and 2. But what it does do is it does create a personalized learning environment for our students where they could be at different places than their peers, right? So that helps us out. Now, when I say different places, I only mean maybe different places in a lesson. Or if I have an adaptive software, it could be different places in that adaptive software, like Alex Math. But the key here is, remember, if I asked you if you wanted an aid in the classroom, I can't imagine that there's a single teacher that said, hey, I don't want an aid. Well, this is not an aid. This is an aid for every student. This is like 30 aids. This is one for each and every student. And the cool thing is, remember those absent kids? We talked about how the technology can help pull them up, because guess what? Even if you're absent or remote, like we are today, that doesn't prohibit you from doing the digital content, right? So it's still helping kids understand that they get that ownership. And that's the nice part here, because they can own their own data as well. That ownership of their own learning when we highlight or we work with digital content. So I want to take a moment and I want to talk about the difference between digital content and digital tools. Now, content comes full. It's got math, English, science, social studies. It comes full. It could be small packaged of a single lesson object, like a video on YouTube, or it could be a full lesson or even a full course, right? It could be a variety of things, right? But now digital tools is a little bit different. When I talk about tools, I'm talking about something that tends to come empty. It's something that we can craft in. Google, Microsoft, I can craft things in there. Pear Deck, I can craft things in there, right? Those are things that we use to craft and organize and manage our classroom, like Class Dojo. I love Class Dojo, right? These are tools, right? But they come empty. I have to put things in them. And when you're thinking about your blended personalized classroom, I always suggest, when you're talking about digital partners, find 1, 2, 3 at the most partners that you always go to, and find really solid ones. I'm a big fan in the elementary to find one that'll cover multiple subject areas, right? If I can find one content product, if I had one software product that could cover math, English, social studies, and science, oh, that would be totally good. It's called Study Island, right? There is some stuff like that that's out there. Or even Khan Academy. It covers multiple subject areas. So I don't have to worry about, teaching kids the software product. Tools, you can go a little deeper into that. I like to have a presentation tool. I like to have an assessment tool. I like to have, one that I can do with my videos so I can post questions with. So take that one up to 3 to 5. Now that we're dealing in the pandemic and oftentimes fully from a distance, I might take these numbers down. I might only have 1 or 2 digital partners and maybe 2 or 3 digital tools. Now, guys, this is the time, pull your annotation up. I put a couple of digital content partners, and if that's one that's yours, go ahead and put a star or a stamp next to it. If there's something that you're using that's not up here, go ahead and use the text box. Remember, it's the annotations up at the top, and you can create a text box, or you can try to use the pencil to do it. Go ahead and put stars or hearts. I'd like to see what digital partners or tools you guys are using. So I got a couple people saying they're using Padlet, Khan Academy, Core 5, Alexia, Moodle. Okay, good. Pear Deck, Flipgrid, Classcraft. Yeah, I like Classcraft. Nearpod, I love Nearpod as well. Nearpod, it's got a new thing with the pause points on the video, because Edpuzzle is my favorite as well. But guess what? If Nearpod can do the same thing and my kids already know how to do the slide deck in the interactives in Nearpod, that's totally cool. So again, looking good, guys. Now notice what tends to happen. Even when we look at this, we're spending a lot of times crafting stuff. We're spending a lot of times working over in the digital tools. What we really want to start looking at is, where can I get some digital partners? where can I release some content to, right? Because if I'm using a tool, then I'm having to build it. Now, there are some tools like I love, Test Teach, which comes from Blend Space, where some teachers have already created some things and they have a repository and I can go and find it. But it would be cool if I could use like MobyMax or Crash Course. If you haven't used Crash Course, I absolutely love Crash Course. And there's nothing wrong with vendor tools, right? If you were using a vendor tool in your face-to-face classroom, keep using that vendor tool in your remote classroom. Forward with your digital tools, right? We had talked about tools and content, but hopefully you guys you're finding some content that you can release to, because it becomes really important when we talk about that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. We want to release a third of the time. Jason did a great job of showing like a station rotation. A third of the time, we want the kids to be on their digital content, but we know it's only going to deliver low-level basic stuff. But the cool thing about that is I am going to be able to get some data that's going to help me guide the instructions. I'm going to know who I can pull a small group. I might know who's exceeding really well, and I might partner them with somebody who's not doing so well, because the data tells me I can set these things up. Or I can say, oh, my kids really don't understand this basic concept. I need to go deeper. Or they did understand the basic. Let's extend it, right? Let's get them deeper into a different way of doing it. How can I do that? Well, let's see. How can I release or extend to the students? It might be a quiz trade. It might just be vocabulary if we're still in our face-to-face classrooms where the vocabulary cards are sitting in the groups and I want them to do quiz trade, quizzing each other on the vocabulary, or maybe quizzing themselves on facts, or quizzing themselves on solving polynomials, whatever that may be. But we want to release to our students so they're actively engaged and interacting. Flipgrid was a great tool, and I love that. I was in a session prior here where they were talking about Flipgrid. Now you can kind of fuzz out your face, because I know oftentimes kids don't want everybody to see the pimple that's on the top of their head, or whatever the case may be. But think about how can you maintain those relationships in the environment that you're at, because the key here is we want to make sure that not only are we extending the learning, but we want to make sure that the students are mastering those essential knowledges, right? And I know I was just in a room with Cheryl that talked about they're doing map tests next week, right? And oftentimes that map test is really going to start with DOK level 1 and 2. So if we can just integrate them with some digital content to help them there, then that helps us so that we can do those small group pullouts and we can do those one-on-ones. So try to keep things simple as you're moving forward, right? As you're thinking through, how am I going to start partnering with digital content? How am I going to start partnering with it? Well, in your face-to-face classroom, it's easy. Jason showed this one with just a simple rotation of digital curriculum being one of the groups, teacher-led instruction being one of the groups, and the third group being your peer-to-peer interactive real-world applications. So you've got offline, online, and teacher, right? Well, what would that look like in this environment, right? What could this look like here? Well, what you could do is you could allow kids to say, okay, I'm going to take the next 10 minutes, kind of like we did in our breakout, and say, I want you to, in the next 10 minutes, I want you to go work in your Canvas classroom, or I want you to go work on iReady, or I want you to go watch this video, right? And you put the link in the chat. So you're sending, and you could have a 2-column or 3-column. If you're in the yellow column or the blue column or the green column, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this for the next, 5 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes. You're going to go working on the software. You could still do it in this virtual world. We just kind of have to think about what that would look like, because we want to release some of that learning to the digital partners, because we can't, especially today, we can't be in front of our kids all the time. But digital content is 24/7, right? It's something that kids can access even when they're away, even when they go to grandma's over the winter break, right? They can still access it. So we want to be able to release some of that learning there, and we'll manage it by looking at the data. Then we want to add in those peer-to-peer hands-on engagements. In the classroom, it's pretty easy. You've got the shoulder partner, the pair shares, or the round tables. It's going to look different in the digital classroom, right? That's where the breakout rooms become important. My understanding is Google Hangouts now has breakouts in it, which is woohoo! Help me, am I right? They do, right? I heard that they had this purple new white thing that we can do that, where there's like they could do some breakouts. Not yet. Still coming. I thought I saw it this morning. And when I say I saw it this morning, it was pre today. I mean, it was in the 8:30. Somebody made a comment about it was coming. Okay, good. Lauren says it's coming in October, right? So we want to start thinking about that. But that doesn't prohibit us, because what we can do is we can still do breakouts. We can put a slide up that has blue, green, yellow, and we say, if you're in the blue group, I need you to go log in here. If you're in the yellow group, I want you to do independent reading. And if you're in the green group, I need you to stay here with me. Right? And so you could still kind of do it. It just looks a little bit different. So you think about these tools and the digital content that we have. How can we plan with that balance in mind? Because really it's a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You heard me say that before. We want to do 1/3 of the time. We want to spend time with the digital curriculum, right? Using Khan Academy, iReady. I saw other people you had all kinds of great stuff up there. I didn't see anybody using MobiMax. Did anybody say that they had, I love this one as well, Freckle at the elementary? That's a good one if you haven't seen that one. I love that one. So there's the bunch of different places that we can get digital content. The key is our role changes now. Right? So I'm not going to be the one that's delivering all this content. So I'm letting the digital content deliver some. And here's a great analogy I like to use. I always tell people, look, you have people in your house that we call partners, and we're looking for digital partners in our workspace, but at home you have partners as well. They're called spouses and kids. And sometimes those partners at your home, they don't put the dishes in the dishwasher the way that you would. And it probably drives you crazy. I know it drives me crazy, right? So that's going to be the same thing with your digital partner. They may not introduce a concept or a topic the way that you would, and it's going to drive you crazy, but release. Just like you don't want to go in and fix everything that your husband or your kids do, right? You just release it, because guess what? When I push the wash cycle on that dishwasher, even though it may not be loaded the way I want it to do, most of the dishes got clean. Right? And that's what's going to happen when I release to my digital partner. Most of the students are going to get that DOK level 1 and 2, that base knowledge, right? That bottom base knowledge, so that I can take them to the higher knowledge. And I can design and construct guided learning environments that really help the students own and personalize the learning space. So when I say 1/3 leading, you know, it doesn't always mean that you're standing in front of the classroom. It could be that you've created an environment for the students to lead themselves through, right? So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But when you look at this equation, right, even the 1/3 where I'm releasing to my students, this is where teachers have a hard time, because it's like, wait, if the kids are all doing group work, what am I supposed to be doing? Well, you're monitoring and managing and that one-on-one coaching. And that's a new role for us, because it's guiding instruction instead of leading instruction, right? So when you look at this equation, 1/3, you are leading instruction, but 2/3 of the time you're guiding instruction. And that's a different mindset for us, is thinking about how can I guide that instruction so that the time that they're spending on their digital content, or the time that they're spending with me, or the time that they're spending with their peers is of value. And it gets us to the top of that Bloom's taxonomy, as well as the top of the DOK levels 1 through 4, right? So think through that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So when you're planning, this is what it looks like. I say, go ahead and set up a column, 1/3 digital content, 1/3 digital, guided instruction, 1/3 authentic assessment. Go through your digital content. What's inside of it? What topics, what ideas, what knowledge? Keep in mind, we know that it's only going to be DOK level 1 and 2, but that's okay. We're going to get some really good data that's going to help us to determine how to partner with that digital content. What power standards do I need to take deeper, right? What is essential that I have to make sure that my kids know? Or maybe it's something that has to go deeper than the digital content can ever get them to, because it's got to be synthesis or analysis, right? I need to do my work, and how can I scaffold and stretch that learning so that I can get the kids to that analysis level, into some strategic thinking. And then I want to think about, okay, how can I add in peer-to-peer collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking, or what we like to call the 4 C's, so that those students can get some opportunities to create relationships, not only with me, but also with their peers. Because you and I know the best way for me to learn something or put it into, you know, my mind is to teach other people. That's why this authentic assessment, this peer-to-peer interaction becomes so important, because we want our students to be able to own their learning, and they can do that when they have the data from the digital content, and when we let them work with their peers and they can see it as well. We want that ownership going on. So that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 becomes really important. All right, guys, we have about 5 minutes left. What I'd like you to do is talk, think about, we've talked about a lot of things. You got to talk to some of your peers. What is a sticky point? And I love that Karina already put in there. I totally agree with the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. What is a sticky point that you want to take away from today, right? How do you make this happen? And I know with kinders, it's a little harder, and it becomes really important for us to how we guide that. So I, think through it, watch the videos. You guys, I gave you the video links. Definitely go back and watch those. But what I'd like you guys to do right now in the chat, what is one sticking point from today that we talked about that you want to take away? Yeah, I'll share the links again. Can you share them? I did that one, especially since they're only online. Yeah, the only online makes it a little tougher. And so helping, especially with kinders, you're partnering with their parents. And so helping them with, with that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Now, I will tell you that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 should not be in every lesson, but it should be over a unit of study. That's why when earlier you saw me do the columns, that was for a full unit of study. If I was going to do a unit on, the pilgrims coming to the United States, how can I release some of that to digital content? How can I lead some of that? How can I put that with the students? So think about not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in a single lesson, right? But think about it over a unit of study, over a week. How do I plan for that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? Yeah, changing, definitely, right? We're changing. We're no longer that sage on the stage, right? We don't have to. What we really need to be is really good facilitators, really good, I want to say artists, but weren't we always artists? Where we're creating and crafting and designing learning experiences for our students, right? Where we're saying, okay, how can I take this paint, be it, a digital tool or digital content, or even how can I take this Kagan strategy and bring it into the lesson? And that's what becomes really important for us, is that crafting. Now, before you guys leave today, and I know later, as you go through, I want to thank you, and I hope you guys really, truly enjoy the symposium. We've spent a lot of time. There is a symposium survey